In this video, I am going to talk to you about the 5 different types of imposter syndrome and how they affect our lives. Now, before we do that, let's quickly establish what imposter syndrome is. Imposter syndrome is that feeling that somehow you're going to be found out, caught out, questioned on your performance to a point that you can't answer because basically you're not good enough. This can happen in any area of your life. It can happen in work, it can happen in relationships. If you're a parent, it can happen in your parenting. If you're a student, it can happen in your exams, your studying, your friendships. Literally, imposter syndrome can affect people anywhere in their lives. Again, this thought, I am going to get caught out or somebody's going to notice I'm not good enough. In a relationship, for instance, I could be in a relationship and think this person who I think I love probably doesn't love me back because I'm not good enough. And this can be a manifestation of imposter syndrome. It's important to say that for some people, imposter syndrome can actually help them. I know that sounds a bit bonkers. How can an imposter syndrome or this thought that I'm not good enough help me? Well, if I don't believe I'm good enough and the imposter syndrome doesn't get in my way, then what it can actually do is it can push me to be better. Like, let's say I've got a job, for example, and I start my new job, and there I am sitting and I'm doing my bits and bobs, whatever it is that I've been tasked to do, but with the thought in my head of, I need to be better, I need to be better, I need to be better. Now, it might be driven by that fear of not being good enough, but the result of it is that I work harder than anybody else, that I study more than anybody else, that I'm got that attention to detail that nobody else has, and therefore my results continue to be better and better and better. How many people have you seen that are at the top of their field? And if you listen for this, you will hear it. If you've never heard it before, listen for it and you'll hear it. People at the absolute top of their game who turn around and say things like, I'm actually driven by that thought that, you know, that anything less than second or anything less than first isn't good enough, or that I'm just driven by that thought that I'll never be good at this. People will even say, you know, I don't think I'm that good an actor, or I don't think I'm that good a business person, or whatever it is. And this is their imposter syndrome driving them to success. But for many of us, it can get in our way. So what are our 5 different types of imposter syndrome? I will say just before we start that this comes from the work of a lady called Dr. Valerie Young, who I think this is a work of genius. I think it's so clever. Since I've started in mental health, imposter syndrome has been a thing that I've always heard of. It's just always been there. But I think her putting them into these 5 categories helps people understand it even more. If you want to read more about Dr. Valerie Young's work, then you can read The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women, where her 5 different types of imposter syndrome are detailed. If you don't think that's the book for you, then you can go and find lots of articles that she has written. Anyway, let's start off with number 1. These are in no particular order, so I'm just going to give you them. I reckon that you'll find probably 2 that you think sound most like you. Number 1, the perfectionist. The thought that everything has to be perfect for me to be good enough. Now, think about how that would manifest itself in your life. Now, you might not have to think that hard. It might already manifest itself in your life in a whole variety of different ways. You might be sitting there going, that's me, I'm the perfectionist. You know, this is now take 747 of this video. I'm only joking. It's only about take 10. But anyway, this is perfectionism. I've got to admit, I'm not a massive perfectionist. Depends on what area it is. But I know many people who are. And it can drive them nuts. As you're going around your world, the stress that's caused by everything being perfect. Things are never clean enough. Things are never good enough. The mark in your exam is never brilliant enough. The relationship is never good enough. The parenting is never good enough. Everything is never good enough because it's never perfect. And even when you establish that perfect and get even close to it, your brain, if you're a true perfectionist, will still manage to find fault in what you've done and say, yeah, well, you did pretty well, but you could have done that just that little bit better. Perfectionism tends to come from our very, our childhood. It is born in childhood, normally by the adults around us. If you come home, for instance, every day and go to whoever it is that looked after you, your mum, your dad, whoever, and you say, look, I got 9 out of 10 in the spelling test today, and the question is, which one did you get wrong? Or you come home and you say, I was in the school sports day and I won silver. And the question is, who won gold and how far away were you? Why did you not win gold? You're good enough to win gold. Your brain will become programmed to always ask, Where's the gap? Where's the gap? Where have I not been good enough? And this can just become a way of life for people. Perfectionists quite often set themselves really big goals that they'll never meet. And again, it can really, really ruin someone's life to have this type of imposter syndrome. How do we fix it? Well, genuinely therapy. But apart from that, if you can't go for therapy or you don't want to go for therapy, the understanding that perfect isn't real. Perfect doesn't exist. It's not really a thing. There is no such thing as perfect. There'll always be that little bit better. Can you allow yourself even 90%? Would 90% be good enough? Where you'll allow yourself just that little 10%? I suppose it always depends on what it is. But to be honest, if you've not put your CV in for a job because you're so busy trying to make sure that the margins are exactly the right size or that every single word is perfect, you're probably not going to get the job anyway. Actually, it's okay to be human. I talked to someone genuinely just earlier on today when I was recording this video, and I talked to someone who had a 4-hour meeting about a screensaver. Like a thing that was just going to be shown in televisions in in a local office with details about the company they worked for. A 4-hour meeting. Oh, that word's not quite right. Can we fidget? Can we just play with that word? That is ridiculous levels of perfectionism. Number 2, and imposter syndrome number 2 is the Superwoman or Superman. Now, what is a Superwoman or Superman? Well, they're the person who works harder than everybody else. And not only that, but the chances are is they want you to know about it. Now, they might not quite be like that, but as a form of imposter syndrome, this is just the thought that if I am not busy all of the time, doing all of the things, working harder than everybody else around me, that somehow it's not going to be enough. Again, all of imposter syndrome really is born in childhood, but tends to be these people who aren't allowed to be idle. You know that, what is it, idle hands something? There's some sort of saying about idle hands. I can't quite remember what it is, but it's that type of thing. I will admit to you as you watch this is mine. If you know me and you know of me, then you'll know that I'm the guy that everybody goes to, I'm sorry you're so busy. But actually, I'm sometimes just busy being busy because that's how I learned to do it. I learned to be busy all the time. I manage it so much better now. When I didn't manage it, I didn't do YouTube videos because I never made the time for them. But anyway, so it's this idea of just constantly being busy. This is the person who's in the office at 6 o'clock and doesn't leave till 10 p.m., that type of person. It's the person who, when they're studying for their degree or an exam, is studying more than anybody else, when actually they're sitting the same exam as the person sitting next to them who studies for an hour or 2 a week and is going to get the same mark as them. And this is an issue because overwork can get in your way. If you overwork, then actually you end up tired. You end up not delivering to the best of your ability. How do we sort out Superwoman and Supermen? What is the cure for this? Well, ultimately the cure for all of our imposter syndromes is going for therapy. That would really help anybody that identifies with any of these. But in the absence of that, if you are a Superwoman or Superman, then what I'd say is just take some time for yourself. You are not performing to your best if you are burnt out. And most Superwomen and Supermen will find themselves, if not now, at some point in the future, and potentially with some actual experiences of this in the past, when you really think about it, of burning out and having nothing left to give. Okay, number 3. Number 3 is the natural genius. Now, what is a natural genius as imposter syndrome? Well, a natural genius believes they should be good at something first time. And when they're not good at something first time, they will give up. And before they give up, they will berate themselves inside their head about how crap they are at the thing that they just tried to do. So they have a life that, especially in their adult life, tends to be littered with giving up opportunities, projects that start and then just disappear. It's not even that they fail, they just never were given a fair crack of the whip. What happens to the natural genius is that, again, born in childhood, normally by being a little bit of a prodigy, normally by being brilliant at something, that when they're in childhood, they grow up with this, oh, you're fantastic, you're great, and this thought of, this is effortless, this is brilliant, life is so easy, and then adulthood hits, and then everything changes, and the challenges, they just hit that point. So here's an example. I work, as you know, with many, many young people. So if you are a young person who, for instance, or were a young person one day, way back in the past, maybe not that far, but you came up through your life always being good at something. So you were always good at it. You were always brilliant at exams, for instance. And then you go to university because you're very clever and you're good at exams. And then you go to uni, and first year, actually, it's a bit of a breeze. Everybody else is studying their ass off, and you're sitting there going, yeah, well, actually, I found first year pretty easy. And then you get to second year, and you're like, well, yeah, this is fine. And then third year hits, and the work just steps up just enough of a level that now you really have to work. Now, all of your friends seem to be doing really well, but the challenge for the natural genius is they've never created the strategies they need. Does that make sense? They've not got the strategies they need from the past. They've never failed. They've never struggled. So they don't know what to do. The mind goes, this can't be right. Therefore, this can't be for me. And then they give up. So a natural genius is a natural giver-upperer. My term, but we're going to go with it. How do we help a natural genius? I don't have to say the therapy thing again, but out with the therapy thing, what a natural genius should be looking at is realizing that actually the practice, the struggle, the hard work, the study, that work that you put in can be a real reward in and of itself. Nobody is good at everything first time. You are not different from everybody else. The chances are you just don't have the strategies in place. Number 4, and this is the one that I've got to admit I think is the most problematic, and this is the soloist. Now, what is a soloist? A soloist is somebody who basically will cut off everyone with the want to do it themselves. They are highly isolated. So a soloist is the type of person who goes, no, I don't want help. No, don't help me with this. No, I'll do it myself. No, just leave it. Stop it. Just leave it alone. I'm going to do it myself, and won't accept any help or guidance or anything at all that would help them be better at what it is that they're doing. This is problematic because the way that we learn is through other people. We need role models, we need teachers, we need mentors, we need coaches. That's just how we learn. That's just what happens. But as we move through life, if we start to cut people out, again, think about the childhood that this person more than likely has lived to get here. This is not anybody's fault. This is more a product of an upbringing, a product of experience, that when this person gets to adulthood, they just want to do it all themselves. I have met countless business owners and small business owners that this is true. It's like, I don't need coaching. I don't need this. I'll do it all myself. Just give me the information and let me go. There's not really much more to say about this. If you are a soloist, this is going to be totally against what you want to do, but accepting help, especially, I would say to you, the soloists. In fact, would a soloist even be watching this video? Let's be honest. Would a soloist even have the awareness to know that they should watch a video on imposter syndrome? Because the chances are a soloist doesn't even, it just goes like, no, this guy doesn't even know what he's talking about. Anyway, but if you do happen to be watching this video, you are somebody who therapy could really help. Letting just maybe even trusted people into the circle can be a really good thing. And finally, number 5, what is imposter syndrome? Number 5, it is the expert. And these are really, really rife, really prevalent in my world of personal development and mental health. Because ultimately, there's so many certificates you can get and so many different things. But the thing about an expert is they'll have all the certificates, but they'll still not feel they're ready. So what do I mean by that? Well, an expert as an imposter is somebody who basically believes that they're not qualified enough. They never have enough information. And to make sure that even if they are seeing you or talking to you or showing you or telling you what they do, they will want to tell you all the qualifications they have because they, as a person, are not enough. So in my world, for instance, this would be somebody who their office is full of certificates. And yes, well, I did my NLP master practitioner and I just went and did trainers training just to get it. I'm also CBT qualified to this level and I've done my introduction to counseling. And yes, I'm also a transactional analysis practitioner. I did a psychology degree. I mean, I didn't need to do a degree, but I just thought, it can't hurt, can it? So I did 4 years. I got a first class, by the way. And I also know my Reiki level 40 million, and I'm a massage therapist and I know how to do cranial something or other, and I happen to be a reflexologist. But next week I'm going to do my 1 week on hot yoga Bikram stuff or something like that, because it's never enough. It never ends for the expert. They need the qualifications to prove to you who they are. And then they will tell you about all their qualifications, always never feeling as if it's enough. This is such an expensive way to live your life, because you're constantly buying more information, reading more books, never feeling as if you're quite good enough to get out there and deliver your skill. And if you are delivering your skill, you're probably nervous about doing it because you don't believe you're enough. How do we help the expert? You are enough. That would be it. That would be my advice for you if you recognize that. You are enough. It's okay. Chill out. Like, just chill out. It's okay. You don't need any more qualifications. And if you are going to go for the qualifications, then make them fun. Why not? Go out there, be crazy. Go and do a course just for fun, not because you don't think you're enough. Start delivering what you do, and just maybe have a wee look at your results. I'm sure you're better than you think you are. Anyway, this is our 5 different types of imposter syndrome. So, what do we have? We have our perfectionist with the big goals and it's never enough. We have our Superwoman and Superman who will work their fingers to the bone to prove that they are enough, never ever knowing when and how to stop. We have our natural geniuses who are like, I will be brilliant at something first time, and if I'm not, then I'm not doing it. We have our soloists who just aren't watching this video. And then we have number 5, we have our expert who is probably hoping that at the end of this video, I'm going to give them a certificate or at least 15 to 20 minutes of CPD time. I'm not, by the way, sorry to disappoint you with that. I wonder what type of imposter syndrome you identify with out of those 5. I don't think that Valerie Young's work is probably perfect. I mean, you'd probably pick holes in it if we really tried. But why would we do that? The only reason we do that is because we think we're an imposter. Why don't we just accept it and see if we can put ourselves into a nice place where we think, oh yeah, that's totally what I do, and just give yourself an opportunity to work and do something else. If you do know what you are and what type of imposter syndrome you think, oh my God, that's totally me, stick it in the comments or come over and find an imposter video on our socials, on our Instagram or Facebook, and put some comments in there if you can. We're headstrong minds everywhere. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned something. Go and stop being an imposter. You're good enough. Well, at least I think you are.